Okay, so we are up to day 172, going through my old journal, and the quote for today says, "It is not how you start the race or where you are during the race, it is how you cross the finish line that will matter." It says, "Do you always finish what you start? What is one thing you started that you felt very accomplished?" And then it says, "Proud of for finishing it." So yeah, if you're following along, just take a minute to think about what you might respond here, and I'll read what I wrote. And I think I've touched on this like several times, so we'll see what I said. Do you always finish what you start? I said no. I don't always finish what I start. I think the main reason is that my motivation seems to come and go in cycles, like I talked about the other day. I said, like, I'll start something and be so, I had like that in capital letters, so interested at first, almost like an obsession. Then I lose interest after a week or two. In some cases, I've made commitments to people during my motivated phase, which often leads to anxiety and stress when those commitments need to be fulfilled. After losing motivation, I've talked about this a lot. And I would often still meet my commitments. And most people probably couldn't tell that I was super stressed and anxious while doing it, but sometimes it would be agonizing. Especially in more recent years, now that I've recognized this pattern, I've consciously made an effort to pull back a bit during my spurts of creativity, focus, and motivation. Yeah, so before I get so like engulfed in it, I'll, try to step back and I'll think about whether or not I'll end up feeling locked into something that I may not enjoy in the future. I said, on the one hand, jumping into random things has been a benefit, but at this age now, it seems like more of a burden to me. And so, yeah, whenever I was younger, I felt like I would always try to like finish through what I started. And I think part of that is because I remember my parents being kind of critical of my sister, because she would get into things and sometimes she would quit, like when she realized she didn't like it. But I didn't. I don't remember a specific moment, but I feel like I remember them like giving her a hard time for quitting things. And so she had quit some things, and so when she would say she wanted to start something, they would be hesitant to invest in that because they thought, well, she's just going to quit. And so I kind of felt this pressure to keep up with things that even if I didn't like it, I would still do it and just like follow through. But most of those things were things that had like an end point to them at some point, I would say the only thing, like the first time I remember quitting something that I had started was where there wasn't like a specific point that made sense to quit, was when I played sports in high school. I waited till my senior year and I tried out for the soccer team, and I'd never played sports before. I didn't know anything about sports. I didn't actually think I would make the team. But my sister and one of her friends were trying out, so I was like, okay, well, I enjoy band, so I enjoyed, like, I didn't necessarily enjoy playing my instrument in band, but I liked the social aspect of it. Just kind of having a group that you were doing, involved in this thing with. And I thought, well, my sister and her friend that I know, that I'm friendly with too, they're going to be doing this. And so we went to like the tryouts, and my sister ended up not finishing through with the tryouts, but her friend was still there. So I was like, okay, well, if she's here, maybe we can be on the team together. And then my sister's friend ended up kind of dropping too, but then I'm like, well, and then there wasn't enough people. Like basically anybody who tried out was going to make the team because there weren't enough people. They just needed to kind of like fill the roster. And so I ended up making the team, even though I was terrible. And then I didn't really have like anybody there that I really connected with. There was this one girl who was a little bit younger. I think she was a freshman, and we were both not very good. And so we kind of like connected a little bit, but I really didn't enjoy it. Like, I just felt like defeated at every practice because I was like the worst. Thankfully, the coaches weren't like super mean to me about it. I think because they knew I was kind of like trying, but I was just bad. But I kept kind of a positive attitude about it, I guess. But yeah, it just got to be where I just hated it, hated it, hated it. And then I ended up like getting sick, and toward the very end of the season, and it was like I was a senior, and so there was all this stuff with like sending in, applications, and getting ready, ramped up to go to college. And so there was just end of the semester things, and yeah, I still stuck through it with that. But then yeah, I got sick, and so I kind of had an excuse to not show up to practice and stuff because I was sick. And then I just decided, like, no, I can't, I don't want to do this anymore. So I showed up to one of the practices with my bag, and the coach was just kind of like, okay, like, I think he knew it was coming. So, but that was really the first time, and I was so stressed and I was so nervous to like show up and like bring my stuff there and quit. But yeah, like, that was really the first time I remember ever quitting something. And there were lots of other things I stuck through even though I didn't enjoy them, but it wasn't so bad, like piano and even band to some extent. I didn't enjoy the instrument that I played, but I liked the people who were in band. I liked practice, like whenever we would do like field, like marching practice and things like that, like just being around people, I guess, which sounds weird because I seem so antisocial now, but you didn't really have to be social. You didn't have to talk that much. You didn't have to like work to make friends when you're kind of in this group. It just happened kind of organically. And so yeah, I don't know, but I didn't continue band after high school. I didn't continue piano lessons or violin lessons. And yeah, with all my other jobs, I think I've been hesitant to like start a career because, and I think that's why I did so many kind of like, I don't know what you would call them, but it was almost like the jobs that I chose were jobs that I knew weren't long-term jobs, that there was a lot of turnover in these types of jobs, so I wouldn't feel so stuck in like the job. So like my first job, I was a student worker, so by that, like once my school ended, then my job would end and I would either get hired on with the company or move on to something else. And then I was a server, and then I would go off and do these internships at Disney. So if I did have a job that I wasn't liking whenever I went off to Disney, like that would be a time to like, all right, this is an end, I'm moving away. And I also did that to some extent with relationships, like, because there was like several relationships that I had that weren't like terrible. Like the guy wasn't abusive, they weren't like a bad guy overall, but it just wasn't there. And so kind of like moving away to Florida gave kind of like a practical place to end it, to where I didn't feel like I was like giving up. But yeah, I don't know, I think for me to be able to finish what I start, it has to be like a short-term thing with an endpoint that I can see the end. If it feels like it's just dragging on and on and on and on, I start to feel kind of like stuck and anxious about that. And I think that's what's been so hard about my PhD and like my current job right now, because it's kind of like I get into this job and I'm like, okay, where does this end? And we had this one project that's supposed to be like a 2-year project, and one thing I've noticed with these academic projects is a lot of times they'll get extensions. And so like, even if you think it's supposed to end after a year or two, it ends up getting extended. And so that's what's happened with this one project we've been on since like 2017. And but I'm feeling better now that I'm coming closer to the end of my PhD, because I feel like that will be like kind of a completion time with this project and with my work, and I feel like it's getting me more motivated to kind of move on to what's next. And it seems like a practical kind of like maybe ending point to this phase of my life, I guess, to where it'll be over and I don't have to quit, but I can get through it, I guess. So yeah, I guess I didn't answer like, what is the one thing you started that you felt very accomplished for finishing? I don't really feel accomplished for anything, I guess. And I feel like that's maybe not normal. Because I think I've talked about this before. Even when I graduated high school, I was kind of like, okay, well, I've graduated high school. Lots of people graduate high school. Like, that's not that big of a deal. What's next? And then, you know, I went off to college. I was the first in my family to go to college, and I kind of felt the same way. I wasn't like, I didn't feel like super proud for like graduating college, because I'm like, a lot of people graduate college, like it's not that big a deal. And I think even too, part of like, I didn't feel like even my family made like that big of a deal that it was like a big accomplishment to do that. And yeah, I even remember at my graduation from my undergrad, like I think most of my family didn't even want to come and sit through the graduation, you know? So I'm like, well, this is not really a big deal. And so yeah, like even with my master's, I didn't even like walk at graduation, and I didn't feel like I accomplished it. I felt like I took too long, and my boss really had to like hold my hand and help me to finish. And so like I kind of feel the same way about the PhD. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think I will feel proud to finish it, just because this has been substantially harder. And there was definitely some times that I didn't think I was going to finish this. I think this is the first time that like I really did not think I was going to finish this and make it through at some points. But yeah, it's like I don't feel like accomplished, or like this, I don't feel proud necessarily of things, I guess. Whenever I accomplish them, I just feel more like relief that it's done. That's the more feeling. Like any of the papers that I've finished, or the reports that I've done, the presentations that I've given, it's not like this feeling of like being happy and proud. It's like just a sense of relief of like, oh, that's done. I was so stressed about this, and this was so hard to get through. I'm just so relieved. And I feel like that's probably how I'm gonna feel with my PhD. It's gonna be like relief. And I think part of that too may be that I'm like such a perfectionist. I never feel like it's good enough. Like even with my master's thesis, I still feel like this was a terrible thesis. Like I felt like they were just being nice to pass me with it. Yeah, I feel like my dissertation is gonna be a little bit better, because I've been working on it for so long. But I don't know, I feel like I'll probably have some sense of that, like, well, it could be better, I could have done better. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really remember feeling like super accomplished and proud of anything. It's just more like relief that I finished. So maybe that's a problem. Maybe I should work on that. And my boss tells me that all the time, like, and she's very good. Like, she's such a good advocate for me. Like, if we're in like calls for some of our projects, she's really good about being like, oh, well, Leah, you know, she didn't mention this, but we got this published, or we did that. You know, she's definitely one to like give me praise. And she's told me that like I don't give myself enough praise, or I don't, yeah, because I put in a packet for getting a promotion, and I didn't even want to go for the promotion. I didn't feel like I deserved it. But she was the one that really pushed me to do it. And she kept getting on to me through the whole process. She's like, you really need to sell yourself. Like, you do good work and you need to sell yourself and you're not good at selling yourself. And so yeah, I guess I don't want to be seen as like someone who's just bragging. Like, I don't know why that is, but not only do I not want to be seen like that, but I don't feel like I have that much to brag about, I guess. So I don't know. Anyway, that's what I have for that. I will be back tomorrow with day 173.